and welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation podcast live with me, your host Owen, and we're joined tonight by several people on the podcast you can see on the screen tonight, and I'll be welcoming them shortly. Obviously, Victoria, my co-host, and Colin as well, our director of Rangers Youth Development Company. I'll be getting to Colin and Victoria shortly, but just want to start off with a huge thank you to everybody who has taken the option to join the channel, become a member of the channel. We're up to 18 members now, absolutely fantastic support. So thank you to all these people listed there on screen. You are absolute superstars. Thank you for coming on board and becoming a member of our channel. It does really help the channel out and enables Victoria and I to do that a little bit more with the channel. So going forward, thank you ever so much to all those people. And also thank you to all those people who donate in the live chat through super chats, super stickers, in particular tonight to our to a star Rangers loyalist who's already been at it before we've even started tonight, donating in with super chats there. As you can see, there's one of them. I will be pulling up some more comments in a moment. So thank you to Rangers loyalists. But as I said, we are joined tonight by a very, very special guest all the way from beautiful Loch Lomond in Scotland. Colin, how are you doing, Colin, tonight?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to speaking to Colin about all the work that Rangers Youth Development Company do. And I'm also joined all the way from Canada, from a very sunny, warm Canada. Don't get too jealous, guys, by Victoria. Victoria, how are you?
I am good. I am breathing like the rest of Canada is trying to do right now because we have these crazy forest fires happening. America down there is getting a little bit mad at us because we're sending the bad air pollution to them. But you know what? It's not bad. The summertime's here. We're expecting a little bit of rain, and then that will clear things up. So it's going good. I'm happy up here, and it's nice to have Colin on. I'm so happy that he's finally here, and we get to talk a little bit about the youth development program and some fun stuff like that. How are you doing, Owen?
I'm delighted. I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, I just noticed your members. You'll have to let me know later how I can join as well. I'll sign up whatever I have to do. Yeah, happy to join.
Oh, we appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Colin. That's fantastic. Yeah. So anyone who does want to join during the podcast, please feel free. Obviously, we've had some people who've joined at the start of the pod. It's obviously just the join button at the bottom of the podcast. John Lammy has joined. Ewan Minton has joined, and I hope I get this right. I'm really rubbish with names. Snecky Bear, I think that's what it is. Like I said, I am pretty rubbish with names, hence why I've massacred several players' names in recent times. There's another one of Rangers loyalists super chats. Trusting Beale to title 56, absolutely Rangers loyalist. I was talking about that the other day on the channel. Yeah, lots of people in the live chat already. RFC 56 as well is there. He's in the live chat. Rangers loyalist, obviously. Cammy K as well, my good buddy. Cammy K says evening Bears. Let's bring his comment up. There we go. Cammy, Chris Patterson as well. RFC 72 in the live chat. Lots of people, guys. I will keep on top of the live chat, but we are struggling. Thank you so much to Alexander as well for a £5 super sticker too. C-Max says, where's the join button? It's just at the bottom of the screen on YouTube, or it should be. C-Max. If not, I'll make a video at some point explaining how to join. Anyway, let's get on with the podcast. Let's start talking all things Rangers, and in particular talking about obviously our youth development scheme and the role of the youth development company. So Victoria, you're going to lead us off tonight.
I am. So first off, welcome, Colin. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule today to come on the podcast to meet our fans that follow along with us and talk a little bit about the youth development program. So first off, I'd love to know, how did you get involved with Rangers itself and the youth development program?
Well, it was an interesting one, and probably some of your listeners will hate me for saying this. We were living in London at the time. We were down there for about 15 years, and I believe it or not, had a phone call from a recruitment company. And to this day, I still don't know where they got my name and details, because I certainly didn't, apply to them. And they asked me if I was interested in coming back home to Scotland for a job. And at the time, I was doing an MBA, and I kind of wasn't really too keen to come back home. We would have come back home at some point, but not quite there at that time. And then I said to her, well, who is it with anyway? And she said, oh, it's with a football club called Rangers Football. And I thought, stop right there. I said, that was the reason we pretty much came home. And, and I've been there, he'd been here ever since. So that was this November, the 12th, 11 a.m., not that I'm counting, is 22 years. So it's interesting because at one of the interviews, I kind of said, look, I'll come here for a year and see how it goes. And here we are 22 years later. There's only, I think from when I joined, there's only one other person still there from when I joined. Everyone else has kind of gone and moved on. And I'm almost like last man standing, you know, so I've seen quite a few changes.
That's amazing. Well, that's quite the story. Now you have me curious how they found your name, but you must be really good at what you do for the right people to find you, which is super important.
The funny thing is as well that they were in Edinburgh. The funny thing is as well, it was a recruitment company in Edinburgh, and I never go to Edinburgh, so I've genuinely no idea. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm actually friends with the person now who found me. I should ask her actually. I should just ask her the question. I should do that.
Yeah, you should. Anyway. Then you can let us know. We'll all know the answer.
Yeah, then I'll text you and let you know what happened.
Yeah, definitely. So your role, what is the details of your role, of what you do within Rangers?
Yeah, well, I've got two roles really. I'm director of Rangers Youth Development Company, and that's an umbrella company, if you like. And underneath there's about 4 other companies that I look after. Rangers Lotteries Limited, Rangers Enterprises Limited, and that's kind of it's got new products that come along. Last year we tried Rangers quizzes and various other bits and bobs. Youth sponsorship, etc., comes under there. And I'm also director of the Rangers Former Players Charity. Perhaps we can talk about that later on. You know, that's a part of my job that I love. I mean, there's 2 elements of my job. One, I look after sort of funding for the kids, and I look after funding for a lot of the former players. So it's at both ends of the spectrum, at the age spectrum, if you like. So, which is something I really like. I've often said our players get far too much. Modern players get far too much money these days. So I quite like the idea. I'm looking after kids who kind of don't, 8, 9, 10 years old, and 70-year-old players who I watched playing football when I grew up, you know, following Rangers. I'm now helping these guys and looking after them. So it's actually it's a bit of a dream job, to be honest with you. You know, to be honest, I get asked quite often, you know, because I'm hitting that age of 60 now. People want, you know, do you want to retire? Are you thinking about retiring? I don't think I'll ever retire. I'll probably drop dead in my seat, you know, because it's just one of these jobs. I go in with a smile on my face almost every day, you know. So we'll see. They'll probably have to drag me out of there kicking and screaming, you know. So, but in terms of the RYDC, you know what? That to answer the question, I guess. We in a nutshell, we sell a lot of products which fans buy and sign up for. Rangers Lotto and sort of pools and stadium bricks and sponsorship and the halftime draw, Rangers scratch cards and 1 or 2 others, and you know, without the fans, without the, you know, everything the fans do for us, we wouldn't really have RYDC, you know. And in my time, we've handed over about £11 million to our youth programme, which is something we're really proud of, you know, because it's interesting because I talk to a lot of people at other football clubs, and I've been down to Man United and various others, and no one does what we do. No one has. I don't have a similar role in another football club. And I always get, you know, I had a phone call not so long ago from Arsenal, kind of exploring, you know, what we do. And over the years, I've had Spurs, I've had all sorts. Everton invited me down a few years ago to talk to me and try and copy what we're doing, which they did, in fact. So it's an interesting part of the club. You know, when I first joined, you know, what I do now didn't exist. You know, when I joined, it just wasn't a thing. I kind of changed it and fashioned it to the way that I wanted it to be. It was very much stuck in the sort of 70s and 80s. You know, we had one computer in the team, a team of 12. We had one computer, which I found astonishing. And it was my secretary, if you like, who had the computer, and none of the staff had even put their finger on a keyboard by that point. So I obviously introduced computers, and it was the funniest thing ever, watching, you know, people who had been born in the 50s, etc., for the first time hitting a keyboard and being really confused. It was interesting.
Trying to figure it all out.
It was really funny, and really at that time everything was paper driven. You know, it was really bizarre. We would have like 2,000 or 3,000 people come into our office every single week. And back then, my office was in the old Edmondson House. We've got a new one now, which is super. but my office was in the original Edmiston House, and having like 2,000 or 3,000 people come in there on a daily basis sometimes, was just bizarre. And I said, well, why don't you phone, or why don't you do this online? It didn't exist. So that was probably because I'd come from telecoms background. That's what I did in London. So I instantly brought in, IT, if you like, to the game, and kind of changed everything, excuse me. So that kind of drove us forward, because there was no question my area back then was, we reckoned it had 1 year left. And that's why I said, look, I'll come here, I'll give it a year. And if it doesn't work, then there isn't a product, there isn't an RYDC. So, and it would have been a shame, because, we had a great history. It's something that, back in the sort of 70s, they raised so much money from what was the Rangers pools, that they built 3 sides of the stadium. A guy called Hugh Adams was a brilliant man, and that was a time when he was handing over £5-6 million checks in the 70s. I don't know what that extrapolates to now, but quite a number of quite a high figure. And pretty much my area back then built 3 sides of the stadium as we see it now. And one of my first tasks, when I was involved in, was the actual building itself. We sold Edmiston House to the Murray Group for £1 million.
Okay.
And we handed the £1 million straight back to Sir David, and that was the money which bought the land that our academy is on at Auchenheavy. We needed £1 million to fund our training centre, and so we came up with the idea of selling the Edmiston House to David Murray's call centre operation. And then we moved out into the stadium, and the £1 million was transferred back to the club to buy the land that the training centre is on, which is quite a nice circle, because I'm now involved in the academy, which is at the training centre where we paid for the land, if you like. So it's quite a nice circle, So, but it's one thing that the staff are all happy about. We're funding the kids, and we're funding from age 8 up to about age 16, I would imagine, So, and we've seen quite a few players come through. I remember, for example, Billy Gilmer and Nathan Patterson in the same team at age 11, 12, 13. Two hugely talented kids at that age group. And even the McCrory brothers, Ross and Robbie. Coming through, and a few others. I remember watching one youth game, and in the team, fairly young, it was Alan Hutton, Barry Ferguson, Charlie Adam, and Scott McCormack, if you know his name, up front. And it was ridiculous, the talent that we had. Ridiculous coming through the youth. So it's I love doing what I'm doing. It's great.
Yeah, that's truly amazing. I mean, when you think about it that way, it's thanks to you guys putting the kids through programs like that, supporting them, educating them, and seeing them become the players that they are today, and the players that we have obviously had in the past, as you mentioned, like Barry Ferguson and stuff like that. It's an incredible program, and it really is truly all thanks to you guys, basically giving people that want to play for Rangers that opportunity, which is absolutely incredible.
Well, when I first sort of joined, myself and you have to excuse me for any name dropping that I do. It's just because I'm around these guys. John Gregg, myself, and at the time it was Jan Derks who was running the academy. The training centre had literally just opened the year I joined. It was literally brand new. The first time I went up, they were taking cellophane off chairs and stuff like that. The pitch, some of the pitches still were being seeded, etc., etc. There were guys and electricians, still fixing lights up, etc. And John, Tommy McLean, in fact, Jan Derks and myself, we had a meeting to just talk about the youth programme, etc. And it couldn't be further from where it is right now. Back then, it just could not be further apart. It was nothing in relation to what we have now. Craig Mulholland, who's sadly leaving us. Craig did an amazing job. Craig and I spoke many times over the years, and what the job Craig has done has been incredible in terms of, you would have to go up and see the operation that's in place now. The youth teams have their own physio, their own doctor. They didn't have anything like that before. Their own masseurs, their own psychologists, a welfare officer, and it's quite funny. The welfare officer, and I love this. If the welfare officer visits the school of the kids, and if pupil A hasn't done his maths homework and he turns up for training, the welfare officer has the maths homework. So he gets this, right, come over here, and the maths homework is put in front of him, right, you finish that before you can go out and train. So it's things like that. So the kids learn very, very quickly to stick in at school and do what they're doing, and it's great. But that's the sort of stuff that our money goes towards, in funds. And I remember talking to, I wouldn't name, one of the kids who's now at Everton. Damn, I've given it away. He actually said that, from when he stepped up to the first team, when Nathan stepped up to the first team, it was so natural because everything he had in the first team, they've actually got in the academy. Whereas before it was a massive leap, to go from what they had round the corner, if you like, to suddenly having all these coaches and masseurs and doctors, etc. But they've got that at the academy now, so it's like for like. So all the boys say that when they go round. It's just a natural. The standard obviously is the big difference, but everything else is pretty much the same. And I think that for me is one of the main bonuses that our funding, if you like, has been able to do, is to raise the bar. Our academy is an A 5-star listed academy. It's just the best. It really is. It's wonderful. We do a little bit, what we can do, but it's all down to the coaches and Craig and his direction over the last few years. Absolutely 100%.
I love that. You guys have such a high standard, and you can really tell that when you're talking about like both sides of the club, where they came from and where they are now. That's fantastic, Colin.
Yeah. Do you know, it's interesting because one of the things that I mentioned, Billy earlier on, and the McCrory brothers, etc., and Nathan, but quite often we'll stand, before a game, we get the team sheet sort of thing, and we'll look at our team, obviously, but then you look at the opposition to see if we can see anyone who's come through our academy, and you'll be amazed at how many players we can say, oh, he did, of almost every team in Scotland that we play against. Bar the obvious one, you can sort of pick someone who came through the Rangers Academy. So even the players, and it's a very low percent who do make it with Rangers because the bar is set so high. But a lot of these kids will go on and play professional football. They might turn up, and no disrespect, but they might turn up at Hibs, Hearts, Aberdeen, etc. So I always like to think that we're helping the Rangers Academy and Rangers, of course, but we're also helping Scottish football in general, because a lot of these kids will go on and will have a professional career. So it's just not at the level Rangers are at. But it puts a smile on my face when I read a team sheet and I say, oh yeah, I remember him at 12 years old. So that's quite a nice thing. It's nice. It's good to see.
So Colin, obviously you've talked of all the work you guys do there. You mentioned obviously all the lottery and things like that. You've obviously a big involvement with the club. Now, obviously, we've got we personally, myself and Victoria, absolutely love James Bisgrove. Absolutely, just think he's amazing. Has he spoken to you already and sort of given you a
James and I speak. Yeah, we speak quite often. James is a great guy. I was absolutely delighted. I sent him a message, minutes after we heard. Spoke to him yesterday. So yeah, absolutely 100%. When I first met James, excuse me, the day after perhaps he arrived, we had a bite to eat together in the restaurant, and it was clear that James is switched on. There's no question. I think everybody can see that. And we're heading for some great times. We are 100%, and I'm not just saying that because James might see this, but James knows how I feel. I think he's great. I think he's great for the club. Can I also say that Stewart's done an amazing job as well for the time that Stewart was here. When I've told Stewart that as well. He's from the club that Stewart inherited to the one we have now. I mean, a lot of fans might not like me saying this, but I can tell you from an internal viewpoint that the changes and improvements that Stewart has made have been incredible, and he's done an amazing job, and he's passed the baton on to James, and he's given James a high bar, to be honest with you, to move on from, which is great, because certainly Stewart started from quite a low bar, if you like. There was a lot of issues at the club at the time, many of them not our doing, and let's not go there. But Stewart drove us forward for the last 7 years or so. And I've really enjoyed working for Stewart, and I'm really looking forward working for James, because I'm switched on to the way James thinks, and we've already spoken about we're going to have monthly get-togethers, monthly meetings to kind of talk about my area. And to be honest, James, I mean, even yesterday what we were talking about, I can't really say, but it's something that it's a new product that's going to bring more money to the club. And James's message to me was fully on board, Colin. Let's make this happen. So I think looking forward to working with James. And I if I can say one thing, I think the Rangers fans will be delighted, with the things that the ideas James has, and how he's going to drive us forward. It's a tremendous move from the board to put James in charge. It really is wonderful. I couldn't be happier, actually, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I can only echo those sentiments, Colin. I've obviously I don't have any in with the club, but just from watching Rangers TV, watching the interviews with him, etc., etc. He is such an impressive individual, the way he talks. And one of the things that really impresses me is the fact that this guy has such a clear vision of what he wants for our club, and a clear way of going along that journey. He's just such an impressive individual.
Yep. No, absolutely. We're very, very lucky to have James on board, and certainly it's an exciting. I mean, this time of the season is always exciting for us at the club, because the season's gone, and we can now look forward to new signings and etc. The grass, the pitch is looking. I was down yesterday. It's all been touched up, etc. And the pitches, just the smell of the new grass, etc. Kind of gets you excited for the new season. And certainly having Edmiston House, the museum, we were talking about it yesterday. We're looking for a kind of mid to end July opening for the museum. That's going to be amazing. I've got a product, Museum Lotto, which is going to raise money, hopefully, which will help to fund, if not fund, all of the museum. And that could be on a separate podcast. So I'm talking about the museum, because it's I've seen a digital run through, a little kind of program that we have that you go room by room. Excuse me, and it's just wonderful. There's no way you'll see everything in the museum in one visit, 2 visits, 3 visits. You have to come half a dozen times, to see everything. Because we have so many things. I mean, the trophy room, for example, has something like a sixth of the items that we have. So the museum couldn't possibly hold the other 5/6, if you like. It just so many things. We're constantly getting more and more things. So what we've done is we've digitized over 3,500 items. We've digitized. So quite a lot of the museum will be like many museums are. You push a button and something comes up on the screen. You push a button, something comes up. It might be a game, it might be a player, it might be a team, etc. And it's just I'm really looking forward to seeing the museum. As I say, I've seen this digital run through. I'd popped my head in 2 weeks ago, I think, just to see how things were progressing, and the shape's there. It's all there. The cabinets are ordered, etc. So the glass is there. So So I mean, then obviously once that happens, the shop, where the shop is just now, if you can imagine, that's going to become a Rangers cafe stroke pub. If you think Witherspoon's a Rangers kind of that kind of idea, sports TVs, etc. everywhere, and just having fans come to the shop, come to the museum, go into the Rangers pub sort of thing, and just spend more time in the Onderon in the Rangers space, because certainly that's one of the issues the club has on a match day, especially if it's it's raining. A lot of guys, maybe the guys from Northern Ireland, they arrive 3-4 hours before, and there isn't much to do round about Ibrox. So having the Edmiston House and the museum and the Rangers shop and the cafe, etc., it's just going to help everything, So it's and we're now looking towards another structure and then look at the other side, the Broomlawn side. Stewart and I were talking about that yesterday. That'll be something we'll look at in time as well, because we can't do everything at the same time. We also have to buy some players, so we can't spend all our money on the stadium, unfortunately. So it's a kind of balancing act, So it's for 4 years or so, and I won't go into this too deeply. For 4 years or so, there was no spend at all in the stadium for reasons that we all know why. And we're kind of catching up on a lot of it, So it's you know, that some of the stats in the stadium would amaze people. Like, I can't remember how many it is, 23, 24 miles of pipes under the pitch. Never mind all the pipes round about the water tanks in the stadium. There's 27 water tanks or something. These are huge things, the size of this room. You know, so all these things have been untouched and nothing really done, no maintenance for a number of years. So it's a lot. It takes up a lot of money, you know, and I know a lot of fans would like us just to spend everything we have on players. Unfortunately, that's not 100% possible, you know. So anyway, I've dealt too deeply there, you know.
Absolutely, yeah. So to say thank you as well to C Max has just dropped a super chat. He's still looking for the join button. I'm sure he'll find it eventually. Like I said, I will make a video, I think, to explaining that a little bit, obviously on the channel, so don't worry about that. Obviously joined by our good buddy as well, David Hutchison, who regularly watches and comments on our videos. Big fan of the channel. Hello, David. Good evening to you. You know, Colin, we've obviously there was a tweet today went out, which I shared on our channel on our page on Twitter, with Adam Devine talking obviously to the Rangers Youth Development Company, talking about their money, and he had that check for £400,000. So in terms of, you know, the money that you give to these players, does it go to the players? Does it go to the organisation? How is that money actually used to support the players' development?
Excuse me. Yeah, I mean, when I first joined, the money just disappeared into the club. You know, it was kind of used for the stadium. You know, it would, you know, pay for things to be painted and whatever it may be. But I was quite keen that, you know, for us to make our YDC a success, you know, we had to see something tangible, and I think fans had to see something tangible. You know, i.e., where is my money physically going? You can't just say, oh, it's painted that little bit there, or it fixed this seat or something, you know. So it was my idea to change it round to go to the youth program. You know, at that point we sat down and said, well, okay, where exactly will it go in the youth program? And just as I mentioned earlier, you know, before we started, the youth team, you know, they didn't have a dedicated, you know, masseur or doctor or physio, or the number of coaches that they have now, etc., etc. And even small things like, and it does matter, you know. My nephews were up there for a little while. At the age of 14, I think they'd been to 17, 18 countries with Rangers youth teams, you know. So these things cost money, you know. So, and again, I remember about 4 years ago now, I think it must be, I went with their under 18s to Slovakia. We were playing against Slovakia, and Nathan was on that trip. And I remember talking to him and saying, you know, are you looking forward to this trip, sort of thing, you know? And he said, and he just kind of shrugged, and then he told me, and I asked him, how many trips have you? This is 18. He says, I've been doing these since I was 11 years old. He says, I think I've been every country in Europe. And he couldn't remember if he'd been to Slovakia before. He just literally couldn't remember, because, I mean, every year under 11, 12, 13, you name it, we're sending kids across to tournaments in Holland and Germany and France and Belgium, you name it. And the experience those players are learning and through, you know, visiting other teams, and quite often they're playing, and we don't really hear too much about it, because a lot of these games, certainly under 11, etc., they're not massively competitive. They might be under 7, they might be under 8, so 7 aside, 8 aside, etc. But we're playing Bayern Munich and teams from France, and we're playing top clubs. So whenever the players get to like 18 years old, etc., they've done that quite a few times. You know, they've done it. They've been doing it since under 11, 12. They've been flying on airplanes to tournaments. So that's the kind of thing that our money goes towards as well. And certainly, you know, talking to Craig and some of the coaches, it really is valuable experience for the kids. So that when Nathan stepped in that first time, when he played his first European game, he'd been playing European football for years since he was 11 years old. You know, this wasn't his first rodeo, as they say. It wasn't the first time he'd stepped out and heard foreign voices in the opposition. He'd been doing it since he was 11 years old. So that's the kind of thing that our funding goes towards, to fund a whole number of clubs. So whenever you see a photograph from the Rangers Twitter account saying, you know, this team are off to Belgium, off to France, etc., you know, invariably RYDC have been involved somewhere to help fund that, you know. And of course, everything else behind the scenes, you know, the number, apologies, that's my son phoning me. He doesn't know I'm doing this. So yeah, so all the stuff that I mentioned earlier. So the academy, some of the changes that we've made at the academy just to improve, because there's two wings. There's the professional side, the first team, and the second team. The second team have their own pitches, their own dressing rooms, etc., etc. So anything related to there, the maintenance of those, the new seeding of the pitches, etc. Our money can go there as well. To be honest with you, £400,000 can get snapped up pretty quickly. To be honest, over the course of a year.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I would love it to be, 3 times that. To be honest, So, but we're proud of the, £11 million at the academy over the years has been tremendous. I'd also like to add, and it's worth mentioning that during that same time frame, we've also given away, it's probably more than 11 million to fans and prizes. So at the halftime draw, Rangers Lotto, etc. So we've had lots of smiling, happy Rangers fans over the years, because we actually give a lot away as well. It's not just about give us your money and whatever. We do give away a lot of prize money as well to fans. So we regularly, just in January, we gave £25,000 away to a Rangers fan. So he was very pleased. So it's another side of the house that we quite enjoy, is actually giving money away. That might not sound great coming from a Scotsman, but it is, we do enjoy giving money away as well. It's a lot of our fans, they play our games, etc., because they want to give money to the academy to support everything I've just mentioned. But let's be honest, at the same time, there's money to be won. We give away on average about £7,000 a week from Lottos, and then if you have a match time draw, there's £5,000 for that, so that's £12,000. If there's 2 games that week, then that's £17,000 we're giving away that week in prizes to Rangers fans. So it adds up.
Yeah.
It's part of our job that we love. Fans phoning up to tell us they've won, or us phoning them to tell them they've won. That's always a nice phone call.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. So that brings me into one of my questions about Rangers Lotto. So obviously, it's such a joy for somebody to be playing a game to find out that they've won either a little bit amount of money or a large amount of money. That can make such a difference to somebody's life. And like you said, making those phone calls yourself to people that maybe don't necessarily know they've won, and calling them up and be like, hi, by the way, just so you know, you've won part of the Rangers Lotto. So how would fans get involved in Rangers Lotto, and how much does it usually cost to do something like that?
Yep, the best way is our website, which is just RYDC, Rangers Youth Development Company, rydc.co.uk. If you go on there, you'll see your big Lotto button, click it, and then you can sign up on there. £1 a week. So, I don't know, is that a packet of crisps these days, a bar of chocolate? We'll probably all spend that on rubbish today alone, So if, sadly, and I don't like admitting this, but we're not the biggest lottery stroke pools company in Glasgow. I'm not saying who is, and we should be. There's no reason why we shouldn't be. If even 20,000, 25,000, 30,000 of our fans, and we've got a lot more than that, played £1 a week, not £2, £3, £4, £5. Give me £1 a week. That's all I'm asking. We would easily double, treble our funding of our youth academy. And then that starts to make a serious difference, because obviously another side of our academy that the academy gets involved in it, and you'll know this, is we buy players. We've bought quite a few players from other clubs over the years. So the more money that we can give to our academy, the more money it allows us to go to other clubs and look at promising, like Zach Lovelace, for example, Bailey Rice, who's looking very promising just now. We bought these guys from other academies, so rydc.co.uk, click on the kind of lottery button and sign up for £1 a week. £1 a week, that's all it is. And for that £1, you get 3 competitions. The Saturday draws are £5,000, the Wednesday draws are £1,000, and then you're in our monthly draw, which goes up to £25,000. So for £1 a week, amazing. You're in 3 draws. You're supporting our academy. You can win yourself some money. I'm reminded of the time that we phoned up a woman who won £25,000, our monthly rollover.
Oh my gosh, tell us about that phone call.
She said she was in her 80s, and she said, no, I haven't, and put the phone down, because she thought it was a crank phone call. So we phoned back and said, no, don't hang up. You have won £25,000. And she says, no, I don't play Rangers Lotto, and put the phone down again. Oh God! So we could phone her back again. Don't you genuinely do play Rangers? She's not a crank. So eventually, I can't remember, her son phoned back or something, and we got through. Apparently, it was her son was playing for her. She didn't really even know she was playing, but she won the £25,000. It was really quite sweet, you know. So, and it was funny because she lived away up in the north of Scotland in her 80s, hadn't been to a Rangers game for many years, and we said to her, said, "Oh look, can we get a photograph of you with, you know, one of these kind of flexi checks?" And she says, "I would need to get my hair done." And I said, "Well, I think you've got enough money now to do that, you know." Do you know something? We never got a photograph. We never. To this day, I don't know what she looks like. We never got a photograph. It never happened, you know. So it's just one of these things, you know. So, and we also do get occasions when, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. We do sometimes get people who don't want the publicity. There was one guy who just got divorced. Didn't want his wife to know he'd won the money. One woman who was still married didn't want her husband to know that she'd won. So to make it out in her name, not his name. It's like, oh, we get everything, you know. It's really quite funny. So one person wanted £5,000. They wanted it in cash. And he said, "You don't want 5,000? That's a lot of cash." He said, "No, I really serious. We didn't ask why." So they came in and they, you know, took the cash away. So yeah, but we get everything. You know, it's the one thing I enjoy is that we're talking to fans on a daily basis through the phone, you know, social media, whatever it may be. You know, quite a few fans come in to see us on match days to sign up or buy stadium bricks, for example. So we see the full life of Glasgow, which can be interesting at times, really interesting.
There's a question in the live chat here for Colin. So from someone I actually know, Laura, says, "Are there any players Colin is particularly proud of seeing come through the system?"
That's an interesting one. I would probably go with Billy Gilmer, simply because Billy, from a very young age, you could clearly see Billy was talented, but Billy was small. I mean, he's still, we know he's not tall. His parents aren't tall, and it was always, the genetics were always there. So Billy, you know, on occasion could get muscled out of a game purely because he was up against players back then who are probably not even playing football these days, but they were perhaps a foot and shoulder, you know, above Billy. But you could see Billy's talent. Billy was always able to, you know, turn and nutmeg somebody, and that got the big guy angry. And quite often Billy was up against it because he was a small player playing some pretty rough games of football. But he kept at it and he kept at it, and you know, his dedication to the game. And they all have that, to be fair. You know, I would definitely say Billy Gilmer. I mean, look at him now; he's playing for Brighton. My goodness, you know, it's astonishing. You know, you switch on the telly, and there was a game, of course, recently when Everton played Brighton. You know, there's Nathan Patterson on one team and Billy Gilmer on the other. Those two came through the Rangers Academy. They're both playing in the English Premiership. You know, so but it's amazing. You know, that Slovakia trip I mentioned there. A quick story. Nathan was there, and Kai Kennedy was there, and there was a few players. Big Leon King was there. And we were coming back from the game. We won 2-1, actually. It was a good game. And the kids were all up at the back. I'm saying the kids because that's exactly what they were. They were up the back of the bus and they're playing all this music, which was, I mean, it was like something your 12-year-old would play. And we spoke about it later on that evening. And what Craig asked me, what was my thoughts on the game? And what I said was, you know, I'd been with the players for like 2 or 3 days and they were going around, they were like nipping each other and pushing each other and shoving it, tripping each other up. So it was genuinely like kids. But then as soon as that whistle went for the game time, it was like they suddenly became men on the pitch. It was actually quite impressive. You know, instantly the joking and laughing, that stopped. And it was, okay, guys, game time. And it was actually quite impressive to see. And then after the game, they went back to being kids again. It was lovely. It was sweet, you know. So I'm proud of them all, to be honest, because as I say, we see them, you know, 22 years. I've seen every kind of kid through. You know, I remember Alan McGregor, you know, saying to me, we had him at something, and I gave him I brought 2 blank tops along. And I said, he was actually on loan at Dunfermline, if you remember. He'd gone out there and he'd come back and I said, Alan, could you sign those for the fans? And he looked at me and he looked at the shirt and says, why would they want my signature? That was Alan McGregor, you know, and he was so humble at the time, you know, and I said, Alan, I think that genuinely, I think they will want your signature. So he signed them, and the fans they'll be delighted now that they've got it. But that going back, that's how the players see it. They're all very humble. There's very, very few of them come through as, if I can say, Billy Big Boots. They're all grounded, and the coaches make sure they're grounded. Some of the coaches up there just won't stand for that. Kind of anybody acting the Billy Big Boots. They're all kind of equals. But to answer the question, sorry, I think I've rambled on there. Absolutely Billy Gilmore, but all of them generally, to be honest.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just the quickest. We always, as we always say on this channel, obviously we are a fan channel. We're fans, and we obviously like to involve our fans. Another fan question here, RFC 72 says, "Is the next steps for the academy to go all over Europe and the world to start picking up youth players, or are they already doing that?"
To be honest with you, I know our scouting is wide, and we're always looking at players, regardless of where they are, and likewise, we constantly get it as well. We played Man City a couple of seasons ago, and I remember talking to Craig about it, and he said, and we beat them. We beat Man City. I can't remember the age group, 18, 16, whatever it was, and he didn't look very happy. And I said, "Well, we've just beat Man City." He said, "Yeah, but they now want two of our players." So that was the downside of it. The bigger guys come and pick you off, as it were. So, but listen, we've got scouts everywhere. We're constantly watching players. I don't think I'm talking at a school. It's no secret. Calvin Bassey, for example, was at Leicester under 23s. He came to Ireland and terrorised us. So we're always keeping an eye on other teams that we're playing as well. And our scouts are everywhere. We've got scouts all over, constantly watching. So it's a tricky one, because bringing young kids, especially from other European countries on their own, isn't massively recommended. Coming over here if they can't bring their families, etc., etc. It's a bit of a risky move, but absolutely, to answer the question, we're always looking. We're always looking abroad, and etc. We're quite heavily involved in England just now. I mentioned Zach Lovelace. Zach's a great player. Still ridiculously young, which is he's the height of me and broader than me and stronger than me, and he's I think just 17 maybe, perhaps, playing for England just now. So yeah, we're constantly looking, because for me, my ideal scenario is, we walk out, look at the team sheet, look at the team, and it's 11 players that have come through the academy. That's my ultimate dream. I can chuck it whenever we get that day, whenever that day happens. I'm resigning right on the spot. It's kind of my dream, Yeah, 11 players who have come through the academy. That's. But to be honest with you, look at any academy, it just doesn't happen. Any academy. There's a blip every now and again, that Man United team, for example, but that's very, very. I mean, Man United themselves have never replicated that, and they chuck millions and millions of pounds at it, But that's that would be my dream, to be honest with you. The more the merrier. Two a year into the first team, I think is some. I think that's achievable. And I think we're kind of, we did a campaign recently. It was Robbie McCrory, Alex Lowry, Liam King, and Adam Devine, and that's 4 who've come up within the last year from our academy. And there's not too many behind them. Bailey Rice, I've mentioned him before. Zach Lovelace are knocking on the door. Bailey Rice is such a cultured player. He's got such a fabulous left foot.
He is outstanding.
He's tall. He's strong. He played in the recent Glasgow Cup final. We didn't win it, but absolute standout for us that night. He seems to be one of those players who has half an hour on the ball whenever he gets it. He just makes the time and the space for himself. Even a bit like Messi, Xavi, Iniesta. Whenever they had the ball, they just seem to have time on the ball. Bailey Rice is a bit like that. When he has it, he just seems to have and make time for himself. That boy is going to be pretty special, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. I've been very impressed with him. I know, watching that Glasgow Cup final, and obviously seeing him on the bench as well. I mean, unfortunately, he didn't get on against Mirren, but yeah, he is an outstanding young man. Yeah. Now, obviously, Colin, Victoria mentioned the Rangers Lotto, and there is a second Lotto that you guys are involved with, obviously, which is the Museum Lotto. And you talked obviously about the very exciting museum, which sounds absolutely fantastic. So, what is the Museum Lotto? How's that going to work? And how obviously can fans get involved?
Yeah, I mean, similar to the, if you go to, I'm seeing it going across the bottom bar here, rydc.co.uk. If you click on that, next to the Rangers Lotto button, there's a Museum Lotto button. Click on that, and you can click a button to sign up for £1 a week. At the moment, what we see it as is a soft launch right now, because the museum isn't there. So we've got, I think, about 2,200 people every week who are playing that just now, which is great, given that there's no museum. And you can win £2,000 top prize every week. You can win £500 second prize, and then there's 10 prizes of £20. So we give away £2,700 a week. But what we've always said is, when the museum is actually open, that's when numbers will start to increase, and that game will start to move into profit, if you like, because the idea is when people come through, when they first come through the door, they'll get a little sign up form. There's a museum form. If you want to join Museum Lotto, sign that form and join. So whenever the museum's open, that's when we'll start to see numbers increase. But the good thing about that is, we're always seeing items come up in auction, for example, and that's the kind of thing that the Museum Lotto money can buy, because and I won't name names. There's a lot of our legends over the years who have been in situations where, and a lot of them, not necessarily had to sell medals or tops or whatever, but it's just because a lot of legends, we call them legends, they don't see a medal the same way we do it. They don't see a top from a final the same way we see it. They would just give them away. And quite often, a lot of our former players have just given medals away and tops away, etc. And these come up at auction. And there's a few things that come up now and again. There was one recently, it was a Scottish Cup medal from a Rangers player, I think it was the 1920s. And we thought, we should have a fund together where we should have that medal in the museum. That should be ours, And there's a few items, for example, from the '72 Cup Winners' Cup team that I know are out there. That I saw recently. There was one that was all the players. I don't know if you know this. All of the players who won in the final were given a watch, and it was engraved on the back. It had their name, and it was engraved on the back. European Cup Winners' Cup winner. And they were all given a watch. From what I gather, there aren't many of those watches still in the possession of the players. And I saw one come up recently at auction from one of the players, and I thought, if this was a year's time and the Museum Lotto was flying and we had a little fund there, I would absolutely be at that auction buying that watch from one of the '72 team to get that in the museum, because that's the kind of thing that the Museum Lotto money will go to. It will be, to get items that should be at the club. They shouldn't be out there, in the hands of. I mean, these are collectors. They're not even Rangers fans. Some of these guys are just collectors to make money. Some of these items should be at Rangers. We see some things. There was a painting I saw recently from the late 1800s, would you believe? And I was asked about it, and I thought, yep, again, that's something. It was of our first captain, Tom Valence, and I thought, yeah, we should have that. We absolutely should have that. So that's the kind of thing, going forward. If people can click on rydc.co.uk, click on the Museum Lotto button and just play £1 a week. So it is, you can win some money, win yourself some money. But rest assured that the funds and the profits will go towards improving, the Museum Lotto and looking after a lot of items that should belong to it. We should have a lot of these items at the club. We've got a lot. We do have a lot. But there's a lot of stuff out there. As a Rangers fan, I see things out there that I think, we should have that. That should be ours. That shouldn't be. And a collector who isn't a Rangers fan, that shouldn't be. There's a few well-known sort of Scottish collectors who are not Rangers fans, but they collect things for profit. But for me, the museum should be a bit special, and there's a few things that we're looking to do. For example, there might be an occasion where for a month we have a John Gregg display. You go in there and it's just this little section here is just all of John Gregg stuff. And it might be the Barcelona team the next month, and it might be, so that's the kind of idea. So we, Joe Morrison and Robert Boyle, and there's a few of them look after the museum, and Joe's a curator. He's doing an amazing job putting everything together and listing everything that we have. But it's never been done before, to be honest. And Joe's always on the lookout for something new and different. And some of the things that we've uncovered have been tremendous. Things that we kind of knew we had, but we couldn't really find them. Like, Frank Sinatra's letter, to the club to thank us. And, we found Jim Baxter's notebook. Jim Baxter kept a notebook. What he used to do was he used to read the newspaper on a Saturday night. Oh, Jim Baxter played tremendous. He would cut it out like a kid would at school, and he would paste it onto a notebook. So it's a notebook that Jim Baxter created with all these cuttings. We found that, so these are the kind of things so it's not, the museum isn't just going to be about, oh, there's a cup, there's another cup, oh, there's a top, there's another top. There's going to be a pile of things in there that you think, wow, that is astonishing. I've never seen that before. Items from the 1962 Russian tour, for example, that fans will never have seen before. So I'm you can tell I'm really excited because I've seen bits and pieces, obviously. Joe has a kind of man cave where you walk in and it's like, holy moly, this is just everything that's going to go in the museum and extra stuff. We found we confirmed it was his when Jimmy Bell, God rest his soul. We found Jimmy's jacket from the 90s, one of his bench jackets, and he had chewing gum in the pocket. So and it's still there. The chewing gum is still in the pocket. So we asked Jimmy, "Is this your?" He said, "Yep. It's the fruity chewing gum." So things like that. Items like that will stop fans rather than just it's like in a museum. You just kind of walk through and you see that's a picture, that's a picture, that's a picture. This will stop you because there's so many different items. You think, oh my God, I remember that and I remember this. So yeah, the Museum Lotto, please, the more people who can sign up for that, the better we can make our museum, so.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. I could just, I'm sitting here listening to you talking about this and picturing myself walking through the museum, almost feeling like it's not just stuff that, yes, like you mentioned, could be cups or different things like that, things that I know, but then you get to look at something that you're like, I've never heard of this. And you're learning from a ranger their story.
Sure.
Like you mentioned, that incredible book that was made of all the cutouts, stuff that we've never seen before that we would truly get to learn, which makes me start to then think about like other players that have played through Rangers throughout history. Oh my gosh, there's so many of them to mention. Some of my favorites, I actually wrote them down. One that I grew up with myself, obviously there's Novo, Amoruso, someone that's very dear to my heart, Willie Henderson, Colin Steen. I've got my dad on the couch listening to me right now, and I actually said to him, I said,
"Hi, Hugh.
Who are like favorite players?" He's so shouting hello. He's like, who are your favorite players of all time? And he said Jim Baxter, Greg, Davey Cooper. And so I would love to know yourself, Colin, who are your favorite players? I know that question is huge when you think about it, but do you have three that stand out that you're like, those are three that
you've named two of mine, to be honest with you. I'm lucky enough, I helped to run the Rangers Former Players Benevolent Club. It's a charity with John Gregg and Peter McCloy. The three of us run that. John Gregg, for me, is a legend. There's lots of players, obviously. I'm lucky enough to have seen a few teams over the years. The 9-0 team, Loudrup and Gascoigne and Big George. I loved Big George. Even after when Big George left, he still used to come back to the club, and and he came in to see me one day and brought two of his German friends to talk who were involved in a youth team, and we ended up going for lunch in Glasgow, and Big George was great. I loved so many of them. And Big Amoruso, I used to love Big Lorenzo. Quick story about Lorenzo. I think I might have told you this on the day we met up at the stadium, Victoria. Big Lorenzo used to come out after the game, he used to come out all suited, booted and showered, and the door would swing open and he would come out, so, "It's Lorenzo time!" Because all the press were there. And quite a lot of the players hated it, absolutely hated having to give interviews. Lorenzo loved it. He loved the spotlight, absolutely loved it. And it was always, we always used to say, right, watch this. And don't look at Lorenzo, look at the door, because literally about 10 seconds later, Torre Andre Flo would sneak out and crawl along the wall at the door. He waited for Lorenzo to come out to scream, and all the press would go and all the fans would go to Big Lorenzo. And Torre Andre Flo, who hated the press, would sneak out the door and away, So Big Lorenzo was great. Now, John Gregg for me, because everything John's done, for the club. He's been in every position, from a player to manager to directors, to the role he is just now. I'm lucky enough that, and this is going to sound terrible, I'm sorry it is, John phones me every now and again, and we just for a chat, and we have a chat all things Rangers, and I phone him up now and again for various things just to get his ideas and thoughts, because he is Mr. Rangers. He is, he's the fountain of all knowledge, and there's a few things over the years that we've asked John his thoughts on things purely because of his experience, and John, are we missing anything here before we do this, before we launch this, before we say this? What do you think? And John's been right on it, because John sees it from a different angle. He sees it from player, from captain, from manager, from director, etc. He's in a very unique position. So absolutely 100% John Greig. The second one for me is one of the funniest guys I've ever met, Ali McCoist. Again, I'm lucky enough to every now and again have a chat with Ali. I chat to him at the Glasgow Cup final. He was there, one of his boys, and Ali has agreed to come on board the Former Players Charity. He's agreed to join us, so that's great. It's just pinning Ali down to sign a form. That's the hard part. So Ali, growing up and following that team around when Ali played, whenever you looked at the team, well, in fact, there wasn't a team sheet back then, it was just a tannoy. And whenever you heard Ali McCoist's name read out, you thought, right, we're going to be okay. Ali is playing, we're going to score. Yeah. Because that's what Ali did. Ali could, it was a bit like Erling Haaland, who could have 10 touches in the game, but he would score 2 goals, 3 goals. Ali was just always there when the ball was bobbing around the penalty box. Ali was there, and just to have him there. And I had one of the funniest lunches I've ever had in my life up at the academy. It was John Greig, Ali McCoist, and John Brown. And I couldn't eat for laughing. I just couldn't eat. The 3 of them were just the funniest. Tremendous. And the third one for me is the late, great Davy Cooper. I was lucky enough to see Davy play for Clydebank. That's where I come from. And before I forget, can I give a shout out? I've just mentioned Clydebank. Can I give a shout out to my mate, Raimi Morrison?
Please do.
Raimi Morrison, my good mate from school. I've known Raimi since we were like 12, 13 years old. Raimi lives close to you guys, Victoria. He lives in Mississauga. So Raimi's cheering right now. I'm sure I can hear him. Yeah, he lives in Mississauga. Been there for many, many years.
Wait till
hi,
over
Raimi,
there.
how are you doing? Yeah, just over there. And Gordon Smith. Gordon lives here in Glasgow. But Gordon, Raimi, and I, we've got a WhatsApp group called the Idiots, which is a Scottish word for idiots, I think. And we go on there and we go on there and talk about the game before it, after, during it, sort of thing. So a big shout out to my good mates Gordon and Raimi. Hope you're all well, guys. Hope you're all safe. So I was lucky enough to see Davy play for Clydebank, and I was actually at the games where he terrorised Rangers, John Greig in particular, actually. Absolutely terrified us. I think from memory, did it take us 3 games to get past Clydebank, I think, back then. And of course, we signed Davy Cooper straight after that. Again, a bit like Ali, when Davy played, you kind of knew things were going to happen. You kind of knew that he was either going to create something or he was going to score. And I think back to that Aberdeen game with the free kick he scored against Jim Leighton, who was the best goalkeeper in the UK at the time. Jim Leighton, he was. He joined Man United not long after that. And I can still hear, I was in the Rangers end at the time, I can still hear Davy hit that ball. You could almost hear the thwack because there was silence before it, and you heard it. And then it hit the back of the net, and it just seemed to be a second it was in the net, So Davy was amazing. That was his prime period. Those 2 or 3 of those Hampden finals, Davy was a different level from everyone else on the pitch. The Aberdeen games, I think there was a couple of Celtic games and United. He was just on a different planet. Davy, when he was in the mood, oh good, he was just a delight to watch. And of course, in the same team as Ali McCoist, my God. What's not to kind of like about that? It was so certainly those are the 3 for me. It's a hard one, but John because he is Mr. Rangers, Ali because of what he's done, and Coop, tremendous. Lucky enough to know them all.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. I can just picture Owen when you're mentioning those names there, and I can see Owen's wheels turning in his head because you did mention some of his favorite people. I know. Yeah. He absolutely loves Ali McCoist, and we were joking the other day. We're like, one day we're getting Ali McCoist on the show. So it's funny that you bring that up.
That would be a dream move. Ali is hilarious, but it's pinning Ali down, and and he would agree with me. He would agree with me. you know, I was listening to Clarice on his radio show this morning, and he was asked the question, "What's your biggest, you know, sort of downside, you know, fault, if you like?" And he said timekeeping. He actually said it himself. You know, we were at NARSA a few years ago at Vegas. No, San Francisco it was, and myself and Jim Hanna, who was the club at the time, Jim, great guy, and Bobby Smith, you know Bobby Smith, Canada.
Yes, I
and
do.
we were going for a steak, so Ali was coming with us. Ali was the manager, so the three of us are as agreed. 7 o'clock, we're in the reception, and the hotel. I don't know if you were there, Victoria. Your dad was probably there. It was a massive hotel, Hyatt Regency, I think it was. Yeah. And they had it was one of these hotels. I mean, I don't know how many rooms, massive, but it had the lifts were glass lifts on the inside. So it's 4 lifts on the inside. So from the reception, you could see the lifts, you could see the people going up and going down. So Jim phones Coy State. He says, Ali, we're going for it. Yeah. I'm just doing my hair. I'll be in a second. Right, okay. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. No, Ali. Jim phones him again. Ali, you come down. He says, yeah, I'm in the lift. So the three of us all turned round, and we could see the lifts. The lifts are on the ground floor. There's no one in them. You know, we said, "No, you're not." He says, "Oh, sorry guys. I was just on the phone. I'll be right there. Go to the restaurant and I'll meet you there. Just order me a beer and a steak." Right, okay, fine. We went to the restaurant, which was literally around the corner from the hotel. Do you know he never turned up? We never saw him again. We had a steak sitting there and a pint of lager, sat there waiting for Ali. That's Ali, but you can't get angry with him because he's the funniest guy on earth. I just love him. He's just hilarious, you know. And what a great you know, guy for the club. You know, the goals that he's scored for the club and everything that he's done. Even now on his radio show, always talks up Rangers. You know, you can see it's in his blood. You know, he's just such a fantastic guy. You know, I love Ali. You know, so but that's Ali.
Absolutely, yes.
So I can imagine all the stories. Go ahead, Owen.
Right. So first of all, I just want to say thank you to Inspector B, who is a new YouTube member. Thank you very much for joining tonight, Inspector B. That's a new name to me in the live chat. Final question. Thank you. Final question, Colin. Just tell us a little bit about your work with John Gregg and Peter McCloy with supporting the Benevolent Club and what it does to assist former players.
Yeah, do you know, it's a charity, first and foremost. And it's a charity that was started about maybe 15 years ago by the late, great Sandy Jardine, Colin Jackson, Peter McCloy and John. And they primarily started it to look after the 72 team, you know, because, you know, let's be honest, back in those days, footballers didn't earn a lot of money. I mean, you're looking at the salaries that, you know, Ronaldo and Messi and these guys have been offered to play in Saudi just now. That is just obscene. It's ridiculous. You know, Willie tells me he got £6 a week. You know, I remember Willie Henderson telling me that he said, you know, son, I always called him son. He said, you know, I'd be playing out there and there'd be 80,000 fans there. He said, see if there was a guy, he was a foreman in the shipyard and he had overtime that week, he earned more money than me. You know, when you put that in perspective, you know, Willie's entertaining in front of 80,000 people, you know, and there's a guy who's working, no disrespect, there's a guy who's working in a shipyard and just gets a wee bit extra money that week. He earns more money than Willie Henderson did. You know, it's unthinkable nowadays. And so the 72 team had to work. They all had jobs when they left. Reid Audie drove a forklift truck in a factory, etc., etc. You know, John had his travel agents for a while and PR, etc. You know, so that's primarily why the former players charity was launched, if you like. But then we branched out to include all players, if you like. And John came to see me, maybe about 8 years ago now, I think. And he just unannounced, he came in the office, sat down with a cup of tea, with a chat, with a biscuit, and about half an hour later, I've got no idea why John is just, because he never does that. He phones, he doesn't just pop in and sit down. She says, you're probably wondering why I'm here. And I said, well, you know, always welcome, John, always welcome. And then that's when he asked me, you know, it was Colin had passed away, unfortunately. And Colin's wife, Pam, had done an amazing job of actually running the former players. You know, Colin and Pam had done a tremendous job. But with Colin passing on, you know, we were looking for someone to kind of take it on who's kind of office-based, who can kind of, you know, be a focal point. And as John said, we can have meetings here in my office, etc., etc. So that's when I was honoured to take it on board, and I still laugh when John said to me, he says, "Don't worry, son." He said, "You'll only have 2 things to do a year. That's about 2 things a year. It'll be fine. Probably about 6 a day. I get phone calls, I get emails, I get all, you name it, honestly." Yeah. And I bring that up with him now and again, and he laughs. And he said, "You fell for that one." So, it's one of these, as I mentioned earlier, that I'm now helping players that I watched on the pitch, and it's just unthinkable back then. A lot of the 72 team, the 2 treble winning teams in the mid-70s. I'm kind of looking after, because these guys are in their 70s now. Willie Matthews is 80, John's 80. So that, they're getting on a wee bit, and there's people need hips, etc. So what we tend to do is I agreed a while back that I wouldn't go overboard in terms of fundraising in case it affects our charity foundation. I didn't want to take any gloss away or any focus away from our charity foundation, who do amazing work. So we don't really promote at all, and we kind of rely on fans giving us donations and doing little fundraisers for us, and that kind of keeps things ticking over. We do have a website, which is just Rangers Former Players Benevolent Club, but the letters. So if you imagine rfpbc.org, and you can donate on there. There's a button on you can click donate $5, $10, £10, whatever. And what we tend to do is, a lot of it is, we can't really tell people what we do with the money. Fans just have to trust. Look, it's John Gregg. If you can't trust John Gregg, then the game's up. And I'd like to think people can trust me as well. The money we get is wisely spent on a lot of former players. We helped the late great Andy Gorham. We helped Fernando. One of the things that we do, and I don't mind saying this, we cover funerals, etc. And any even a former player who did this fairly recently, a player who'd only played 2 games that we found out, we sent a 4-figure check to his widow who had no idea. I don't even think she knew he played for Rangers. We found out. So we can, financially we help out where we can, and in many cases it's greatly received. Especially if we're paying for an entire funeral, which we've done quite a few times recently. Any kind of well-known player over in recent years, we've covered everything basically. So that's one thing we do, and the second thing is hips, knees. A lot of these older players. John's told the story. He played the second half of the a few games in fact with broken bones in his feet. Where literally he's come in at half time and the doctors looked at him and said, "Yeah, you've got a broken bone," and they've just stuck a needle in his foot and injected it. He said, "Right, off you go, back out." That's what they did back then. I mean, DJ has told me so many stories of just getting injections in his feet and his knees and his hips. Right, off you go, and that was accepted. But that's catching up on a lot of players now. All these injections. Where are these injections? What was being injected? So so a lot of players need hips, etc. We quite like. We quite like to go private for a lot of the better known players, and that's where a lot of the funding goes as well. So a new knee, a new hip, etc., etc. I think a lot of our former players who have played 400 or 500 games for us, deserve a wee bit back from the club in terms of help and support, medically. We kind of look after them. So it's not something we can't really shout to fans, "Oh, by the way, this player has come to us with a urinary tract issue, and we're helping him with it." That's a personal thing, So we just help, and we just hope that the fans, can understand. Which to be fair, they do. One quick story on, is a great guy called Stan Gordon, who runs a pub out in the Stonefield Tavern. And Stan phoned me one day. It was a game. It was half time. He said, "Colin, are you at the game?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm in the blue room." He says, "I'm in the Thornton. Come through. We had a wee fundraiser for the former players. I've got a bag of money for you." I says, right. So I went through. This is half time. So I've gone through, and big round table. And Stan said to his dad, he said, "Dad, where's that bag of money for Colin?" And now he's gone under lifted the white cover up. He's gone under the table and he's brought a polythene bag and he's thrown it in the middle of the table. That money sat there during the first half of the game, right? So I've looked at it and thought, and I could tell right away. I thought, what is it? She says it's £12,500.
Wow.
Now it's been sitting under the table on its own for the whole first half. So that was incredible. So that they had a fundraiser in the pub, and that's what they raised for the former players. So that's the kind of thing which helps us going. And and that kind of keeps things going. But we're reliant on fans, doing things for us and helping us. But as I say, it's a great charity. If you want to help our former players, guys who did everything they could for the club, and please go into the RFPBC. I see you've put it on the screen there. That's tremendous. £1 even, £5, £10 if you can afford it, because that it goes to the former players. It goes to guys that you grew up watching. It goes to guys pretty much the Hall of Fame board. Everyone who's alive, if you like, that being crude, we're looking after.
Yeah.
We're helping and supporting as much as we can. So.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. I mean, I know Owen and I have spoken about it on the channel before, but the fans are known, and anyone, I'd say even Rangers supporters, Rangers players, people that work within Rangers kitchen staff, whatever, we're known as the Rangers family. We take care of our own. If one of us falls, we put out our hand and we help them up. And I can see the way that you're talking about that. I mean, you can't always describe certain things that people go through because they're so personal to each person. But like you said, if they go on that website that Owen was so kind to put down below there for you, make your donation.
Thank you.
And you do know that it goes to help truly needs it. And that's going to help someone that's one of our own. And that's, like I said, thanks so much to you, Colin, for taking the time to not just have this as your career, but also obviously have it as a passion. So I want to personally thank you for taking the time to come on the show to talk with our fans, explain a little bit more about the background of the Rangers Youth Development program that we necessarily don't always know about. I personally never knew about making the donations to help the players. That's something that I learned today that definitely going to take into consideration to support more on our channel and stuff like that. And hopefully you get more donations for that. Like we are, we're Rangers fans helping other people, and we are a Rangers family, so we stick together. So thank you so much, Colin, for coming on. I really do appreciate it.
No, listen, thank you very much for having me on, guys. I'm at any time, if you need me for anything, Victoria, you've got my phone number, me on Twitter, just give me a shout. If you need any prizes put up for any competitions you're having, I can, give me a shout. But delighted to talk to you and your family.
Oh, thank you so much.
Hey guys.
Yeah, thank you ever so much to Colin again. Yeah, absolutely fantastic. And listening to some of the stories as well, absolutely, just some of the names as well bring back so many memories. And as I was explaining to Colin before we came on air, like even though I'm English, I've been a Rangers fan since 1987, and some of the names you mentioned, Colin, certainly brought back some very fantastic, some amazing memories. Davy Cooper, Ali McCoist in particular for me brought back some amazing memories. So thank you so much, Colin, for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, as and all the stories and all the work you do, Colin. Thank you so much for that as well on behalf of the fans.
Pleasure. Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you to everyone in the live chat tonight. Absolutely fantastic again, having all of you involved. It's what makes these lives worthwhile. Thank you to everyone who's donated to the channel through the super chat, super stickers. Thank you to all the new members. We are going to have to try and do something though about the color of the new of the membership, because unfortunately on YouTube the members come up in green, which we are going to have to do something about. I don't like that for obvious reasons.
We'll figure it out.
But it's the same on every channel apparently. It's a YouTube thing. I don't know why. So I might email YouTube and see if there's some way we can get it changed to a nicer color, like a blue, for example. But yeah, thank you ever so much to all of you who have supported. It's been absolutely fantastic to have you on board. We'll be back again, obviously, on Sunday with another live podcast, myself and Victoria answering your questions and getting to obviously getting through those. And obviously we'll be back daily with daily Rangers news videos, daily Rangers updates, obviously keeping you on top of what has been an absolutely busy summer already, but an amazing summer so far. Thank you again, guys, and we're back to speak to you again very soon.